Today, I want to bust some myths about personal colour analysis. Hi, I'm Imogen Lamport from Inside Out Style. So some of these colour analysis myths have been around for a long time, and some maybe something, that it isn't talked about as much, but still are things that I hear that I think people get wrong. Firstly, your colour palette never changes. The number of people who've said, oh, I had my colours done like 30 years ago, 20 years ago, now it's a spring or as a winter. And it's like that is what they are for life, yet they don't have the same hair colour as they had back then, just like I don't have the same hair colour I used to have. And their colouring has changed because our skin changes along with our hair. So even if you keep dyeing your hair back to what you might think of as your natural colour, it doesn't mean that that is still the best colour for you, and your skin will change along with it. So along with hair colour changing and losing pigments, we also lose pigment from our skin and our skin changes. So we may not be able to wear as bright a colour as we did when we were younger. But also too is just like me, you may have gone from having dark hair to having light hair, which means a whole different palette. The value, which is how light or dark a colour is, changes, and you need to get lighter rather than wearing all those dark colours still that suited you when you had that dark hair. So I always recommend people get a new colour analysis every 5 to 10 years or any time you do a major hair colour change. And this is because that's when you'll actually have the best palette. Nowadays too, palettes are nuanced. So my absolute colour system has 18 different palettes. And this is because I found that there were a lot of palettes missing in the other seasonal systems and tonal systems that I had looked at. And there just wasn't enough nuance for all the different skin tones and also for all the different ages and stages in life. And so that's why what I did is I feel like I plugged all these gaps that didn't exist. So if you found that nobody can ever tell your palette and you're giving a different palette, you've had 4 different colour analyses and nobody can ever, give you a season and you've been spring, summer, autumn and winter, that is a great sign that the system that you've had your colour analysis with isn't working. It's not good enough for you. So this is why I've developed my system, which is way more nuanced and has way more palettes than any other system so that we have something for everybody. Freckles are warm. This is another myth that often it's one of those ones that kind of abounds in the personal colour analysis industry, that basically if you see someone with freckles, assume they are warm. Now, not all freckles are warm. You can have cool people with freckles and warm people with freckles, and that's because there's 2 different sorts of melanin. Melanin is the thing that turns our skin brown. And so there are both warm and cool versions of that. So we've got to look to the undertone of the skin, not just assume that all freckles are warm. That you can be neutral is another myth. And I've never met a person who's neutral, and I have done a lot of colour analysis over the last 20 years or so, and I can tell you, never met a neutral person. And I think this also comes from where systems are not particularly good, where they're not really choosing, they don't have enough options, and so they kind of decided that, well, you must be neutral because you don't really fit into anything. Because very few colours, the only 2 colours that are truly neutral are true green and true red. Everything else has a warmth and a coolness. And basically you don't have to do much. Add a little bit of yellow, add a little bit of blue to a colour and you are warming it up or cooling it down. So this is why there's very few actual neutral colours. And people tend to veer slightly one way or the other. And this is where I have 4 palettes that sit very close to that neutral line, but none of them are actually neutral. There's, 2, one's just on the warm side and 2 just on the cool side. And there's an awful lot of people who actually fit into those palettes. And this is because the more we are mixed multiculturally, the more we have, one warm parent, a cool parent, a warm grandparent, a cool grandparent, suddenly what happens is we start mixing up all those colours in our genetics and we become more muted. Plus, with age, we become more muted as well. So the more multicultural a place, like Australia is a very multicultural place, we have a lot of different people from a lot of different places. And so we have a lot of kind of mixing of different nationalities and different genes. And that has made more people less bright than may have, been around in the more monocultural places or those times. You can find your undertone from your veins in your wrist. Now, this is one I've read about, but honestly, I have looked at a lot of veins and I can't figure it out from veins. You know what I figure it out from? Looking at how somebody's face reacts to when we're putting colours next to them. Is it making them look more lively and bright? Is it making their skin look clearer and cleaner? Or are they looking more sick or tired or pale or like, you know, they really need a good night's sleep? That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking at your veins. And one of the problems with looking at veins is it really depends on how thick your skin is. How oxygenated your blood is. There are different things that change the colour of the veins in your wrists. And this is why I don't recommend this as a way to try and figure out your undertone. Another myth is that it is only for women. A man rang me the other day and said, oh, do you do colour analysis for men? It's like, absolutely I do. And there is, you know, no reason why a man could not have a colour analysis as well as a woman. And this is great because I actually think for men, it's harder. Women, we can put on a bit of makeup. We can put on the bright lipstick to make the colours work. We can, you know, put on some foundation to make our skin look less sallow or tired or all those sorts of things if the colour's not so good. Most men are not getting around in a full face of makeup like many women do. And so therefore, you know, having a shirt in a great colour is going to make all the difference for a man. So absolutely, colour analysis is for just as much for men as it is for women. And of course, one of the other things that people have often thought about was that it was only for fair skins. And yes, the old seasonal system worked much better for fair skins rather than darker skins. But one of the things, living on the edge of Asia as I do in Australia and having a very multicultural place where I live, where there are lots of Asians and Indians and Greeks and Italians and my neighbours are Egyptian. And I mean, like, you know, we have so many different people. I've got to try out my system on lots and lots of different colours and different skins, and it works for everybody. And this is why I've got 18 palettes, because when you just had spring, summer, autumn, winter, you didn't have enough options for all those different types of African skins. They are not the same. There are many different sorts of colourings in Africa. There are many different colourings in Asia as well. And so this is why we need lots of options for all those different skin tones. And of course, the last little myth is that we just use the palette for our clothes. And in fact, you can use your colour palette for choosing everything that goes on you, from your glasses to the makeup and lipstick to, you know, your shoes and accessories and your handbags to even interior decorating your house. I have had clients who do this and, you know, like it's really easy because the colours are designed to go together. So particularly if you're not someone who finds it easy to choose colours and you're trying to choose a colour scheme for your lounge room or anywhere, you can actually use your colour palette to help you do that, to find colours that go well together. So I've actually had clients who have done that. They've renovated their houses or they've decorated their houses using their palette. So there are lots of different ways you can use your palette, not just for clothes. You know, it's for choosing your nail polish. It is everything you choose to go on you should relate to your colour palette. So there are 7 myths that I hear about colour analysis that I wanted to tell you were myths and not truth. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.